Well, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here is Brit. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing very good. Very good. All righty. Got ourselves a good little slate of topics to talk about today. But first, before we begin anything, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get win shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. So you can just go ahead and smash that like. What do they always say on YouTube? Go ahead, smash that bell icon so you get notified. I'm not very good at it.
I should know this really well, but yeah, smash that
smash
subscribe.
that like button, all that. You know what to do. You've been in this. We all have YouTube. We all know the drill. So go ahead and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network. If you want to follow us specifically, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook, and then you can follow us at Cluster Puck Avs on Instagram and Twix. I think is what they're calling it now. Twitter X Twix.
That's what Michael's grandpa.
It's pretty good.
He used to say, send people Twixt instead of text. So that's really funny.
Yeah, so Twix. So Instagram, Twitter, X, and then Threads as well. Okay, so I don't know, Brit, if you are in a position to do this. However, if I'm not mistaken, you got a little early Christmas gift today.
It's been just bothering me with excitement all week. I kept looking at it, and Mac was fully convinced that I was just hiding a present from him because in Mac's world it's always his birthday. So
he's
thinking that I'm holding out on a present. I'm like, no, dude, it's for me for once. It's my present. So yeah, I got it. And it's
good.
It got here and I couldn't figure out where it came from because it doesn't say where it came from. So
good.
Yeah.
Even better. This
I
is
was
perfect.
Well, it has to be from the one from Nik and Brit, so
it's gotta be. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, let's give a little backstory here. Months ago, Brit surprised me with this book right here called The Force of Nature by Peter Baugh. And the best part about it is right here, a few pages in, it has the personal inscription and a little message from Peter Baugh himself.
Yeah, he's
it's a fantastic book.
Sweetest. It's really good. I've read it.
I still don't know the whole story as to how you gave me a watered down version. I bet it's more profound than that. You probably pulled all kinds of strings to get it.
No, he's literally just the greatest person ever. I messaged him on
incredible.
Twitter, and he let me. I Venmo'd him, and he was super sweet. And
that's amazing.
The sweetest person ever. He's just way too nice, and I enjoy him a lot. He's actually just on the Jeff Merrick show the other day. He's pretty tight with Jeff.
I saw that.
Hopefully I can work my way up someday. And
anyways, so this is a retaliation gift, as I like to say. Give me something, I give you something. My only hope is that it's as good as this. I'm really hoping. I don't know if you maybe have one of these or not or whatever. So without further ado, Brit, let's go ahead and crack her open. See what we got.
I should have. Okay. I grabbed my.
I really hope it's not. I hope it's not broken.
Hope it's what?
Not broken. It shouldn't be.
It says fragile all over it, so I was
okay, good.
Thinking bobblehead. Okay, well, it's very well packed.
Okay, perfect.
All right, and it's heavy for a little thing. Oh, it's Fanatics.
It's from Fanatics.
Okay, so first of all, it says, warning, do not consume.
That was specifically put for you.
Oh, right? Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Okay, so that's why it says the water inside the puck has been treated to prevent the growth of algae. Wow, this is so cool. It is... Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. So it's a puck, but it's glass, and it's got official game used ice water in it, which is hysterical because I always collect random stuff from places we go, rocks and sand. And so now having some water is a new thing. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's so cool.
Yep. That is game used ice from the 2022 Stanley Cup final.
That is
so we'll just call it. We'll just say it's from Ball Arena, the ice that the pros skated on.
Got a pretty
little silk holder in there.
Oh, know. It's got a little stand. It's going to look so good in my office. Wow,
So
that
there
is
you
so
go.
awesome.
So
Thank
you got a
guys so
little
much.
piece of history to go with another piece of history. So
Yeah,
consider
that is
that
awesome. When
hope
we
you
lived in
enjoy.
Colorado when I was younger and they tore McNichols Arena down, I remember people were like, my dad said people were going and like taking bricks and like pieces of McNichols Arena, and he had like talked about going and like getting a piece
Oh,
of cement
really?
or something from when they tore it down. Oh, I love it so much. Thank you guys. That is so thoughtful. I love
Well,
gifts, and that is
I
like
only hope we can call it even
oh,
at this
it's
point.
very even, but we don't keep score, right?
That's right. That's right.
Thank
Well, we
you
hope you
guys. Yeah, that is
enjoy a little piece of
awesome.
history, and we figured, you know, it's just we have one as well. We really enjoy it. Just something historical, something that I've always enjoyed collecting
I was
pieces
worried
of
you guys were
history
gonna send
like
me
that.
like a Rangers jersey or something. A Rangers jersey.
Allie had the thought. I'll tell you that right now.
I figured.
We had the thought.
Oh, that's funny.
But anyway, we just figured it'd be something kind of fun, a little piece of history to have to always
This is
remember
awesome.
the great
Just
Stanley
imagine
Cup
like some
champions of
guy scooping up
2022.
from the Zamboni, like every time they
I
come off.
know,
Like,
right?
oh,
That's some guys like, I bet I could sell this.
yeah. And it worked.
Well, very good. Yeah, there you go. Allie says your Rangers gift is for Christmas.
That's fair.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. And she even adds on to it, she'll get you a Truba jersey.
True. Gotta make
Your
it
one and
extra,
only
extra
favorite.
sour.
That's right. Okay. So now that mini Christmas is over, let's kind of jump into the meat and potatoes of the episode today. So, as I was watching this is a kind of, I don't want to call it a stolen item or topic of discussion, but it was one that kind of inspired a discussion that I'd like to have with you, Britt. This topic came from the guys on Locked On Avalanche. So if you guys aren't familiar with them, we really recommend you go and listen to them. Chris and Shaggy over there do an excellent job.
Yes,
At discussing the
they're
Colorado Avalanche. We love them. We're good friends with them. They're awesome people.
They were
but anyway, so
Nik and I were on their show for the fan thing, and that's kind of how we got here. Was Nik and I met on their like fan, whatever you would call it. I love them because they drop their show like in the middle of the night, so it's always waiting for me in the morning, and I listen
right in the
to it
morning.
every morning. Fortunately, I don't think Chris listens to this, so he won't even know that we still Chris and Kyle won't. But I never I always give him, like, I always have to message him and give him shit about their hot takes, especially. So I just couldn't believe. I always feel like Kyle is like the fun. He comes out with like the louder hot takes, and Chris is always like Mr. Level-headed. But then Chris comes out and says that he doesn't like the Kachina logo. How do you feel about that, Nik? Chris says the Kachina logo is overrated. And so then I was sending him Darcy Kemper pads, and I'm like, dude, come on. Like, you never come out with hot takes.
You take greater liberties than me. I know that much. Yeah, listen, it's a take. I don't agree with it personally, but hey.
Yeah, so Chris, if you're listening to this, you're still wrong.
That's right. That's right. So if you do listen to this, just know that you have also inspired this topic of conversation. So anyway, so as I was listening to their one of their episodes the other day, it was talking about Avalanche players that you wish stayed longer on the team. So I'd like to bring that into our discussion here and kind of use that as a topic for our discussion. But I'm also going to add players that we wanted to have stick around longer in Denver and players that probably overstayed their tenure in Denver. Right now, remember, this is, off ice is a different thing. Who they are as a person, totally different. This is just on the ice production, tenured players. Okay, so let's start with the first one, and these are players, and this could be however many you want to come up with, Britt. But who is a player or players that didn't get to stay long enough in your eyes, that you wanted them to be there for a lot longer than they really did stay?
So I kind of like, my obvious go-to is like Peter Forsberg. Like, when I see him in Flyers stuff, it gives me like a visceral reaction, because to me, like, he was never anything but one of us. But obviously that's not, I thought of him, and then I kind of tried to think more of people that maybe didn't stay with us long enough, and it was our own fault. And my first thought was Sandis Ojolinch, who clearly had a fantastic career. It's a little bit far back, but if you just do a quick Google, it's easy to see that he's somebody that any team would have been glad to have for the entirety of their career. But I kind of settled on the Chris Drury trade. I love Chris Drury, and I just am such a person, like if I fall in love with a player, and that's Chris's other take, is he doesn't fall in love with players. Chris doesn't fall in love with players because he doesn't want to get attached. And I'm but the polar opposite, and I fall in love with the player. And because honestly, my first thing is like Tyson Jones. He should have been there with us for the Stanley Cup. Like it still kills me, but I don't want to get like stabbed or made fun of on Twitter, so I won't go with Joe's. But the Chris Drury, like he was just like, he was a special person and a special player, and I just feel like he should have been a lifer. Like a lot of the ones that come to mind are guys that I just feel like should have been lifers. Like no amount of time was enough unless it was forever. Just an incredible two-way player. He got traded. I can never remember who we even got back. Like that's how insignificant it was. We traded him, and we also traded him with Stefan Yell, who is another one of those guys. And it's so funny because when I was little and my dad was always rooting for the Avs and we'd listen, I always thought that Stefan Yell was like his whole last name because you'd always just call him by his first and last name for some reason. But we loved Stefan Yell in our house, which if you go look him up, he's also seriously underrated. People do not talk about him enough. And if we had had him longer, I think he definitely could have been more of a historic Avs player. The two of them together, we traded them for Derek Morris, Dean McCammond, and Shantz. And we traded them within our division, which is gross. We had a series of trades that all went within our division around this time. But yeah, that's just, and I'm a Chris Drury person lover. So I know that I usually have an emotional tie, but those are my guys. Beyond Mr. Tyson Jones, who I think should stay and play with us until he's as old as his grandpa and then die old in Colorado. But, and then Oslunch, I think Oslunch is just a big miss for the team. Personally, I don't have any attachment to him, but Drury, I definitely do. I love Chris Drury.
Mm-hmm. That's a good pick. I do. I thought about that one actually for a hot second. So a couple that I thought. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to keep things a bit more recent than anything. However, honorable mentions did include the names of Jerome Iginla, Paul Kariya, and Teemu Selanne.
That was my other Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne that was my other choice.
Yeah. So, so it was an honorable mention for me. So actually, why don't I throw it back to you? What was it about them that you really wanted to keep, besides the fact that they were already superstar talent?
And I just feel like when we lived in Denver, like Avs hockey has obviously always been a big deal there, but they just brought such a like a big name and just noise and energy when they came. And it was like, it was going to be like, we're going to do the damn thing. Like we got the dang guys, we're going to do the dang thing. Like this is what we need. And like, honestly, how can you add those guys and not? And especially, I don't know if you've really listened much from Paul Kariya. I mean, he's clearly a very enjoyable person, but I just kind of came down to them as my honorable mention because I think that maybe not longer, just a different time or a different season. It's just like the stars just didn't align, and that's such as NHL hockey. But yeah, their star power in a loud, flamboyant way that I just don't think the Avs really had. We had such quiet, other than Patrick Roy, obviously. But we've generally had very calm, collected, and quiet star power. Sakic is not loud and obnoxious, and it just felt like those guys, like it was such noise when they came, and I think that it would have been great to keep them for longer, and that's just kind of, but then I kind of came down to maybe even just a different time as opposed to more time, you know what I mean? Because it just we should have won. Really should have won it. Sold the whole farm. It was like we were the New York Rangers of 2023. Selling the whole
just go farm. After all the big guys, all the names. That would have been quite the team, actually. Had we kept like all those guys together.
Oh yeah.
And anyway, I see a question from Alan. We'll get to it in just a second. But so the three names that I ended up with, as far as players that I would have really liked to see stay for longer, one of them should be painstakingly obvious because my first
Does he
go-to.
play second line center, maybe?
That's one of them. That's the other painstakingly obvious one, I guess.
Yeah.
But mine, and like you say, for player attachment purposes, this is my number one.
I know this one. Okay.
And this goes by the name of Tyson Barrie.
Yeah.
Just the reason why. Now, let me first clarify. The trade that was made with Tyson Barrie going to Toronto and Nazem Kadri coming back, it was a successful trade. It worked.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Hard to argue that.
let me just say, we won the Stanley Cup. One of those reasons is because of that trade, and unfortunately, it cost Tyson Barrie. Right now, that out of the way, I would love nothing more if he came back or he stayed on the team. The reason why is because the team chemistry that he promoted and that he, I guess, signed up on was out of this world.
That's why it still bewilders me that we didn't seek him out this summer, considering all the locker room guys that we lost. I just can't imagine a better fit, like an Eric Johnson replacement.
Exactly. Like that would, I mean, he wouldn't, he'd be a second, third pairing, right? But he would still captain a power play flawlessly, as they did back in the time of, I think, one of his last year with the team. They had a power play that was it was starting to cook. They had something that was getting ready to go, and then obviously the trade happens, and it, nothing came out of it.
What this year? $2 million? It was.
I think he was traded mid-season, if I'm not mistaken. So he still has a year left on his contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So there's still a possibility we could go get him, because I think he's like $3.5 million, right? Which compared to something like Samuel Girard or something like that, it's pretty good. And honestly, I think Tyson Barrie puts up comparable, if not better, numbers than Sam Girard. I hate to say it, but that's, at least when he was with the Avalanche, that's what he was doing. Cale Makar had to go and beat.
That's a McDermott, Jack Johnson. I mean, it's a couple of nobodies, not nobodies, but bottom level. If you were to purge, and I don't know, I really thought that we might be getting him back. I really, really thought that, but
I was so hopeful. So hopeful.
That negative 59.
That's right. But the reason why, like I said, Cale Makar, he's been shattering all these records for the Avalanche, for a couple of years now. But guess whose records he had to beat? Tyson Barrie's, right? So if you throw those two on, and just I just feel like the chemistry would just be overflowing, and they would get just some of the best power plays out of there, because Tyson Barrie knows how to initiate a power play really well. I mean, you saw him with Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl on either of his flanks there. So
Edmonton liked him too. They weren't thrilled to see him go. It wasn't like he was an easy trade by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it didn't really pan out for them. They thought they were going to get someone better on that trade with Nashville, and unfortunately, didn't work for them. So I was kind of hoping Colorado would swoop in. But anyway, I could go on for hours about how I want Tyson Barrie back, but we have to move on. So the second player, which you did guess, was the man he was traded with, and that goes to Nazem Kadri. I became actually a very big Nazem Kadri fan after the trade happened, and I got to see him play. And obviously, with just the fact on that Stanley Cup winning year, he was, by a wildly big margin, the best second line center in the league.
Right, and that's why he ultimately became a first line center.
Exactly, and that's why
he was the factor. Like,
he was the difference maker out there on several games, including the Stanley Cup Finals, right? So obviously with that overtime winner in Game 4 in Tampa, one that I can think of right off the top of my head. That was one that's it's going to sting, because in free agency there happened to be a team, the Flames, that happened to show him more money than the Avalanche were willing to offer, right? Yeah. That was one, in my mind at least, that I really was hoping the Avalanche would have, retrospect all this stuff, right?
Yeah,
But I wish they would have matched that pay, because I
I'm
wanted him
kind
to
of
be
curious
here.
in hindsight if there's any regret over that, giving Nichushkin the money. I know that fans certainly seem to be bringing it out without really considering Nichushkin's age, though. You're definitely paying for the beginning of Kadri's contract, and not the end is going to be harder, but coulda, shoulda, woulda,
Exactly.
Hopefully we can get Val back, to where he's earning that money too. We
And
forget
now
how
we have
crucial.
Ryan Johansson, who technically does make that much. We're only paying him half because Nashville's taken the other half. So here's hoping that void can be filled. But you saw the effect of not having Nazem Kadri last year. It took a toll, to fill that gap as far
that
as
2C has got to be.
center.
I mean, short of goalie, 2C might be the single hardest position to find that niche player, because the best 2C doesn't stay a 2C. Like there's no sense. So it's a tough. If you've got a 2C lifer, then consider your team very lucky, because it's not a normal thing.
Yep, exactly. So those were two of the more recents. One of them, we have to go all the way back to 2001 for his last season, that he also did finish with the Avalanche, winning a Stanley Cup and having one of the most memorable hoists in NHL history. And this award goes to Ray Bourque. How I would have loved to have had him 6-7 seasons before he came to the Avalanche, so he could have won a cup with the Avalanche in 95, 96, and just his defensive style of play. Granted that entire team had something magical, right? But just the way he played, it was solid. It was nothing got past him. It was almost, I guess I want to say, one of the more perfect defensive mindsets that you could have.
I mean, the quintessential defenseman of that era.
Exactly.
In multiple eras, really, and evolving. How long did he play for the 20 years?
He was with the Bruins for 18, 20 years, like an outrageous number.
Boston cheered joyously over the Avs winning the cup, simply because he won the cup.
Ray Bourque got it.
Ever more deserving. To play a perfect game for 20 years and retire without a cup would be just an injustice.
Exactly. I mean, and that's just on one side of the puck. You look on the other, and few seasons before, let's say he did join in that 95, 96 kind of era, he scored 20 goals, which for a defenseman in that time was not an easy thing to do, right?
Sure.
So just if we were to have had him, I couldn't help but think, between 95 and 2001, between those two cup windows, how many more cups could we have gotten or gotten closer to had he been on the team earlier? So that's one of those players that I'm like, it's maybe not exactly extend him on the backside.
Yeah.
It's more if he were there earlier. But
he was a compelling leader that made a difference.
Exactly.
I mean, he's a very compelling person in general. He's almost that kind of scary dad that you don't want to disappoint vibes, but also really fun and joyous. But he's just a very, very compelling person, and truly one of the all-time greats that really doesn't get discussed. One of those kick up, tie your bootstraps and go to work every day. And he's just
it was his 9 to 5, but he had that grandpa mentality on the farm, where it's that's your life. The farm is your life. It's your job. And he took it beautifully, and we only had 2 years of him. Oh, and I wish we had 20. You know what I mean? So
I know
he'd be my third pick for those who I wish stayed longer, aka got here earlier.
Well, and he played for Boston during their run where they made it to the playoffs almost 30 years in a row, something like that. And so could you imagine a career being that good and going to the playoffs for 20 years in a row and not getting the job done? It would be mad.
They got close several times. But and that's the thing. That's what drove him to go elsewhere, is that he wanted the cup, right?
And he had support, and it's just
and they had a great team the entire time. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're exactly right. So anyway, those would be my three
Good
that I
call.
said. Any others that you wanted to bring up?
Um, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
There could be like a perpetual discussion on goalies we should have hung on to, or, but that's just what we do,
Yeah,
right?
we
That's how the
we
abs.
we make them get good and then they go. That's
Yeah,
exactly what
we just
happens.
get people paid. So
Take
it's
Darcy Kemper for example,
yep,
the
yep.
the Lone Ranger. Anyways, that being said, let's kind of move into the second side of this discussion. It's going to be, again, this isn't about their person. This is about their tenure. Because I know
What is
because there's going to be a lot of people on this list that I'm like, I love you to pieces, but. So why don't we start with you, Britt? Who was someone that they shouldn't have stayed as long as they did?
it? So it's funny because I kind of found him on both lists. And I'm perfectly happy, obviously, with how it turned out. But my quick go-to was Matt Duchene. But also, we could say wish he would have stayed longer. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
I think that the contentious ending with him was maybe some fuel. Obviously, it ended up okay. We acquired the most crucial pieces that this team has ever seen and the NHL might ever seen. So it's fine now. But he's somebody that I could argue for both sides. But that was my immediate jump to. My next one, and this was like kind of a hot take, and I figured I'll just roll with it because I struggled on this one. I almost feel like, and it's funny because I just argued about how Avs ditch goalies, but I feel like we should have probably dealt Varley sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we just kept him around and we worked him so hard. We destroyed that poor groin of his. He played unreal, but I just wonder if we should have traded him for some serious draft picks while he was at the top of his game, because he was,
Yeah.
people forget that he was absolutely phenomenal for a brief period of time when the rest of the team was not. He basically drug us to that playoff series. So I'm curious if he could have had a much more successful career had he gotten to go somewhere that was like close to any kind of success. And then I really wish that we had him for the Stanley Cup win. I just feel like he deserves it. And Varley was one of those guys that when he was hot, he was genuinely one of the hottest goalies in the world. And when he was cold, he literally couldn't stop a beach ball. There were some goals that were painful, and so yeah, I feel like we should have got, and it's hard to look back at this stuff and judge because everything worked out as it should. But looking back, I almost wonder if for his sake and for our sake, and tanking wasn't really a thing yet then. I think people still had too much pride for that, but maybe they should have tanked. Could that have been a tank for McDavid? Is that how far
Thanks for
back are we?
McDavid.
How
That
far?
might have been the
I guess no. McDavid was,
because let's see. I'm letting me pull it up here.
or who was
Varlamov
the phenom?
started. Let's see. 2011, the 11-12 season is when Varlamov kind of took the reins, and he
Mhm.
was there until, let's see, that was an injury year. 2018-19, so McDavid fit right in that era. So
Yeah, because when I'm trying to think, so it must have been 8. We named our dog Varley 8 years ago. So no, 10
yeah,
years ago. 11, about as old as my dog Rook was. So 10 or
yeesh.
11 years ago.
Man, that's
So yeah,
I
we could
keep
have been
thinking
tanking
like
for
it's just
McDavid.
last year that we had him, That's
I
crazy how
know
time
it's
flies.
wild that we have a very, very elderly dog now named Varlamov.
Wow.
Like,
Elderly
that's how
dog
long
named
it's been.
Varley.
I guess they're not super elderly, but she's the one. She's getting old. She just had like a big surgery and stuff. But she's like 11 or 12. The girls are, and it's Decker and Varley. So we named her Decker, and then immediately Decker left the Broncos, and we're like, all right, well now it's Brianna Decker for the the Olympics.
There you go. There you go. Interesting. Who else?
I
Oh, is she going to catch fire? She might be catching some stray bullets for this one. Let's see.
I know this one was just like, I don't know. I really couldn't name anybody that I was passionately felt like we should have gotten rid of. You tell me yours. Don't. And plus, I'm just guilty. I'm a guilty. I'll feel guilty. I don't know.
Okay, so let me first say this. I tickled the thought of Ryan O'Reilly.
I did too. That was one that I thought of originally.
I had the thought, but the pros ended up outweighing the cons slightly.
Yep.
So honorable mention, but at the same time, it is what it is. There are a lot of people wanted him back. I wanted him back.
Yeah, so, and then Jost was my other one. I mean, that was we traded him while his value was low.
He was at a lull in his career for sure. So, okay, so the first one, it kind of would lead into one of your picks, and he goes by the name of Josie Theodore. So, again, he was not with the Avalanche for a very long time. I think 3 years max was it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think he was there 2 times before Varlamov. And Varlamov got like I said, his tenure started in 2011. So with Theodore, he stopped in 2008. And the problem with, like I said, I don't think he did anything wrong, but he also didn't do anything right. Now, that being said, that could go for so many players, right? Yeah. And like I said, he ended up going on being, he was fine on other teams, but the problem is he didn't have, I guess, a ton of playoff experience going into his tenure, and most of the time, you kind of look at his numbers and stuff, and he's got just about as many losses as he does wins. So he was consistently as good as he was bad, you know what I mean? So it would have been one of those, like, if we ended up not grabbing him or not, whatever, however it is, I don't even remember how he got him, to be honest with you, but it's one of those, like, I feel like you could have written him off the books to grab a better goaltender to help you launch forward, and maybe that was, you could have gotten somebody that could have made a difference.
We fumbled a lot of goalie stuff around that time.
Yeah, and I think maybe you might be right on that. So maybe that was like the organization kind of failed Theodore more than he failed the organization, but it was maybe like a mix. I don't know, but I just look at that. We
had like a bunch of middling goalies.
Like Craig Anderson, same thing. It's and Calvin Pickard. Like, there's just all these guys that it was like, okay, thanks for hopping on, because like you said with Varlamov, or even you could even look at Grubauer, you could look at Darcy Kemper, more modern day. The Avalanche could have, we could have retained so many, but like you said with Varlamov, there could have been more value had we gotten rid of him in our lull of a time, right? And this 07-08 season, we advanced a round or two, I think just a round, honestly, but for what, like, I don't know. So it was just one that was just eating at me. So I would say Jose Theodore is on the list, but nothing, like I said, it's just for tenure and production purposes, nothing against the guy. But it's one just like you kind of throw your arms up in the air and say, why? Okay, number 2. I am going to catch a lot of heat from this. And I know I'm going to. Now, keep in mind, the guy is amazing. But that guy's name is JT Compher. This one was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow for me, to say the least. But it just feels like for those years, minus this contract year, and even so, the contract year, he wasn't fitting the bill that the Avalanche wanted him to fit. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like, he was good enough to be on not a fourth line, but you were wishing he could have done more, because he had shown a lot of promise. He'd worked his way up. He'd worked his way onto it,
and just the consistency.
He didn't do anything with it. He did enough to to consider himself to be a
I
higher
remember
tier
that he was on the
player.
team occasionally and then just disappeared
Uh-huh.
entirely.
Exactly.
I obviously don't dislike him. I like him, and I think that
Oh,
his
love the
family
guy.
is sweet. But like, I've never had any attachment to him. No, I get the whole clutch factor, but like, I just don't. I just
Yep.
never. It didn't hurt me much at all.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider like the play on ice, because it was just so sexy. I don't
Exactly.
know.
No, and that's just it. It's he did enough to say he's a professional hockey player, a solidified one. And obviously with this contract year, he went out, he's getting paid
And
as
holy shit, good for him getting them to
right, which is
him
like
that,
awesome.
because
Good for you.
that is a disgusting overpayment. If the Avs would have matched that, I would have been furious. I would have been
Barfed.
absolutely furious. Yes.
Yep. But just for what he was making at the time versus what he was producing, I feel like we should have gone 3-4 years ahead and just said,
Right.
hey, either pick it up or you're out,
And yeah, and that's what I just don't think that he was one of those factors that we would have absolutely not won the cup with. I don't.
Yep. And my wife could attest to this. She had asked me this a long time ago, and I was just so disappointed every time when she would be like, so you had to kick off one on the team. My first answer every time was JT Comfort, just because of that
Oh, for
reason.
sure. Yep. The same with like the expansion drafts, like take him.
Well, that's exactly it. I was like, oh, I would have had this because I don't remember if on my expansion draft we made up a little, I think I might have read it off to you. We came up with our own for Seattle, and I had JT Comfort going.
It's just someone who he felt like he should have been like a depth role player, but he constantly just flashed just enough to keep himself in the discussion of being like a top 6, but only briefly enough to keep the discussion alive. But it never really felt like that with any consistency. And consistency is the true tell sign of top end talent.
Exactly. Yep. So that one is definitely the big name of the three, but it's one that I was just like, I have to come to terms with that answer, and that would be exactly why. So JT Comfort gets the boot on my number 2 on the shouldn't have stayed as long list. Okay, number 3. This one's again kind of one of those, thanks for being here moments, and that goes to Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. He's a fun guy. He really is, and he has probably one of the best hot take comments you will ever see on the top when they were going to Tahoe. But other than that, Tampa put better use to him than we did. So again, maybe it's an organization thing more than it was a him thing, but I just feel like P.E. Bellemare didn't really do anything in his tenure here. He just was like, cool, we have a Frenchman, and that's it.
I know, God, he's just so sweet though. It's like hard.
He is.
He won the cup with Tampa, right?
I want to say he did.
Where is he now?
Let's see, he was with Tampa. I want to say he signed with, was it the Kraken? I want to say it was the Kraken. He's going there.
Oh, that's weird.
But yeah, he signed July 2021. So no, I actually don't think he did. The team reached the 2022 Cup Finals, but lost to the Avalanche. So the year after he took off for Tampa, they lost. So kind of a junior Corey Perry for us, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But that's exactly it. So it's like you look at what he did for the Avalanche, and again, there are players that have had far less production than him, but they weren't. I don't know. He had less than 10 goals every season, and like I said, he has a 3-game stint where boom, he's great, scores 3 goals right there, and then just disappears for 25 games. So it would be one that
we seem to have a small collection of those for an extended period of time.
We do, and he happens to take the heat because he's one of the more recent off the top of my head. There's plenty that could fit in this category, but I'm going to say Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. The guy's awesome. He's really funny, but but just as far as his tenure here, again, just leaves me asking why. So, all right, anyone else before we get into a couple more items here on the list?
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm sure we could probably go through every last roster from year to year and say keep, leave, keep, leave, keep, leave.
Yeah,
But,
and most of them come down to like depth players that it's more like a
Mhm.
hindsight thing, you know, in the time
Yeah.
you're waiting for them. I am thankful that even though like we held on to people like Jost, I feel like the Avs kind of learned and we got rid of Newhook at just the right time instead of keeping him around until he fizzled out. So
Yep. So anyways, that's our list, you guys. Let us know in the comments or message us, whatever you want to do as far as players that you would have liked to have seen stay longer, players you didn't want to see stay as long. Let us know. We're very interested to hear your thoughts. Again, we said a lot of names. Let us know your thoughts on our takes. We're definitely interested to see what you guys have to say. So, okay. That being said, we have waited now 2 weeks for this player, for the now player spotlight moment. And I'm very interested to see his life story.
I can't get my thing to pull up. I'm not sure if I can play the video that I wanted to play for the funny story. It won't load.
Oh
So
no! Is it this one that we already have saved in the archive here?
No, but we could just play that
not.
one. We can plug that one in, and maybe I'll post my funny video for Cogliano, which is Cogliano. I'll post it on Twitter later because I don't know if it got taken down. It won't load the page at all. So our guy today is Cogliano, who I think is one of the most like underappreciated guys in all of the NHL. His story is so interesting, and he is possibly the toughest person that ever graced the NHL. And like, it's so funny because everything that I've read, everybody that talks about it says that he's been taking hits like this basically since he was like a child. He's always played like this, like maniacally. He's one of the hardest workers that ever was. It's been discussed often that is and has been one of the fastest players in the NHL. I don't know. Do you know if he has been on did he do any All-Star game races? Like, did he actually race anybody?
Oh, I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Because I'd be curious if he ever actually beat anyone. He'd probably find a way to injure himself if he did.
Probably.
But he's just I'm trying to still see if I can get this to load up. That is a bummer. He, as any newer fans know, he is the one who broke his neck and literally finished the game last season, which is just truly like one of those.
That's nothing short of a miracle. That is.
Yeah, it's so wild. So he's 31, and I always think of him as like this really big, skinny guy, but he's only 5'10", and he's 180 pounds. So like, he is 5 inches taller than me and only 30 pounds more than me, but still out muscles like some of the biggest, toughest guys. So I don't know. It's really weird. He is 36 years old. I'm trying to look. What is his Ironman streak at? Doesn't he have?
I don't know.
He has played 1,219 games in the NHL.
Jeez.
That's
insane.
His career has just been a lot. Like let me just get his full on, because I couldn't even like remember it off the top of my head. So he started in Edmonton. He was there 2007 to 2011. Then he was in 2011 to 2019. He was with Anaheim, and from like all the different stuff that I read, he was absolutely worshipped in Anaheim. Like absolutely worshipped.
I'm looking at a puck right here that I have signed by Andrew Cogliano when he was on the Ducks. So
on the Ducks, yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, and that's what most of his like fanfare and the real deep discussions on him and like the stuff that I found on Reddit. A lot of the most passionate discussions definitely came from the Ducks. They would have kept him forever if they could have. He spent a couple years with Dallas, which I don't even know if I knew that. Did we know that? Like, is that because he was with Dallas
I
for
think
2 years?
yeah.
Solid years. He played 68 games and 54 games. And when you look at his career, so, and I'm just going to read these off super fast. And this is why he's played so many games so these are the amount of games he played in a season: 82, 82, 82, 82, 82, 48, 82, 82, 82, 82, 80, 46, 32, 68, 54, 56, 18. So as you can see,
Wow.
short of 2 brief half season, ending injuries, this guy has played almost, and last year he played 79. This guy has played almost every game of every season for 15 years. It's just insane. Honestly, they need to take his DNA and clone it. Like there's something in his DNA. You know what I mean? He's like that Ovechkin thing, but it's also weird how he just doesn't look like not like an athlete, but not like an athlete like that. You know what I mean? That's gone through so much and put so much time on the ice and on his body. And I think that people spend a lot of time only talking about how long his career is, but he's, as we all know, his number one thing is he is one of the top penalty killers that basically has ever lived, especially that's ever graced the Avalanche. And he came along at the perfect time. He played more than 700 consecutive games. So I think there's only 2 or 3 above him.
So crazy.
Yes. So he was the rookie of the year. He was co-rookie of the year with Sam Gagner. I'm trying to find it. So Edmonton traded him to the Ducks, which I would be curious. I never looked at what they got in return for him, but it must have been decent because he was he was good when Edmonton traded him, and he was good for them. He got his first hat trick right when he got there. Oh, yes. Okay, so he got the nominee for the Bill Masterson. I'm trying to see. I can't remember, and I didn't write it down. I don't think he's ever won any individual awards. And do you know, was he a captain for the Ducks?
Oh, was he? Let's see. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's take a look here.
And so while you're doing that, there was a weird blip. So Anaheim, he was traded to Anaheim by Edmonton in 2011. And then he was signed, it says signed as a free agent by Austria, November 17th, 2012. And so I don't know if he was not going to go to Anaheim or what the deal was with that. I don't know if you had ever heard anything about that because it's weird. I've never heard a discussion about him playing in Austria or that there was rumblings of that. Where's
no captaincy, by the way. In fact, not even alternate captain.
Well, who was?
Because Getzlaf was the captain for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say, would he have been the whole time?
Yep, he was captain for quite a while. In fact, let me go back and see exactly when. So Getzlaf was captain from 2010 up until obviously a couple seasons ago. And then they haven't had a captain since. But like I said, Corey Perry was an alternate captain. Saku Koivu and Timu Solani, Ryan Kessler, but yeah, no Andrew Cogliano.
So he's Canadian. I think that did he play in the last Olympics, if I remember right, or was a backup? I can't think of the word, on the Aces team, but he's from Woodbridge, Ontario. Which I've never heard of Woodbridge. Have you?
I don't know where that is. Let's take a look.
And the leagues that he played for. So I've heard of a lot of the various junior leagues throughout Canada, but he played for the Vaughan Rangers in the Ontario Minor Hockey League, the OMHA, before playing in the Greater Toronto Hockey League with the AAA Vaughan Kings.
Yeah.
And he did play in the Quebec International Pee Wee Tournament, which is always like, I always think that's a funny tidbit because I love that that's such a big deal, that Pee Wee Tournament. So he was drafted in the 3rd round, 54th overall by the St. Michael's Majors in the OHL. He was considered, which is weird because he was like the top OHL prospect that year. But apparently he had discussed playing NCAA, which I didn't realize that. I don't know if it's just like if you hint at it or you make it known that you might go to college hockey, then it drops your draft value a lot in the OHL, because then if you pitch them to go play in college, then they lose that draft pick, I'd imagine. Do you know what I mean? So that's the only thing I can imagine, because it's wild to think that the top draft pick went 54th overall in a draft that I would imagine is probably quite a bit smaller than the NHL draft.
Sure.
So he played in the OJHL, and then he was selected in the 2005 NHL draft. So he ended up moving to the NCAA. So like apparently they weren't wrong about his possibility for the University of Michigan, which I always think it's interesting to me when Canadian players go the NCAA route, because usually it just seems so polar opposite of the OHL is like so not like worship, but it's like such a big,
it's a prestigious.
Yeah. So in 06-07, he was a good scorer for college. I mean, he did great. And then he won gold with Canada in the 2007 World Junior Ice Hockey Championship in Sweden. He confuses me because I can't remember if he I thought he played in the actual Olympics. How long ago was that though? Are we looking at 12 years?
He would have played, let's see, 2014 was one year he could have played. 18 was another. Could have been anyone. Okay.
So he ended up getting drafted 25th overall to the Oilers. He made their opening roster right away. I don't know if I keep trying to see who they traded him for. But he has honestly been cherished everywhere he went. And it's kind of wild to me that he's been let go from various places. But I just don't think that his career has been compelling, because there's something about the Avs that seem to work with him. And I don't know if it's a speed factor, because he really is just a very fast player.
Or the fact that he's made of Nokia phones.
Yeah.
Just won't break.
Yeah. He did hit the Cale Makar gig with Anaheim. He made his debut in the playoffs, and then they got eliminated. But he's kind of a playoff guy too, and I just love that about people. I like that there's those people that wake up in the playoffs. You know where you can just like you can write off the rest of their season. But the thing with him is he's also just one of the most reliable regular season players that we've had. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I had anything else super important.
Sorry, I muted myself. There was a lawnmower that was going.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the most notable thing about him is always going to be his longevity. I will play that video for you guys. My other favorite Cogliano moment is that moment of him sitting on his porch at home with the Stanley Cup, just drinking his coffee, just looking at it. And it's kind of one of those like, the guy's works. I mean, he has put in more time on ice than so many people that got the cup before him. And just like, it's almost like you can just see the relief and just pure relaxation. That's one of my favorite Stanley Cup pictures. Him and Jack Johnson, like eating ice cream out of the cup with his kid.
Oh, that was such a fun moment.
So cute. But yeah, so that's Cogs. And we just re-signed him. Did we just do 1 year, right?
I think it was just a 1-year deal. Yep.
Was it League Min? It might even not. Some people are like kind of annoyed by it, but I'm just kind of coming to the terms with I'm just not going to count him out till he's retired. Like I just assume him and
Pretty
Jack
much.
Johnson, like they'll just be around until they're not.
He's
And
kind of like a junior Yarmer Yager where he just keeps playing and
yeah,
playing and playing and playing.
that's what I love
And
annoying
it's
people on
great.
Twitter. Whenever I see Yarmir Yager, I always put Avalanche legend, and it's just like because I don't think anybody ever associates him with the Avs other than the Avs, but like he did play for us. Like it wasn't like it was an insignificant and then it was weird. Cogs also had so he played a couple years for the Stars and then he just had weird little blip there with the Sharks. He played 56 games before he came to us. So I don't know. The Sharks just like didn't I don't know. They were needing to get busy sucking faster apparently.
I don't know, man. I don't know, but he's definitely one of those guys where when we signed him, I was, I guess, less than excited, so to say. I was
Right,
like, oh,
right.
cool. We had a has been, and that's kind of
Mhm.
how I saw him is like he's been around, team to team, hasn't really stuck with it except for when he was on the Ducks. But then just something new awoke in him, and granted, he's been stealing other players' goals, but
Yeah. Well,
that's
and there's
okay
something to
as
be
long as it
said
goes in
about
the net.
did he play like 20 regular season games with the Avs before?
When he was traded, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, not a ton. He only
He
played like
wasn't with the Avs that long. And
only the half
do
half a
you
season.
recall the order in which Cogs got the cup? Like there's a
He
reason
was
that
like third or something, wasn't he?
yeah,
He
the
was like
cup was handed to
super up
Cogliano
on there.
before McKinnon and
Yeah,
Makar, if I remember right. I mean, he is respected deeply
he's
within
paid
that
his dues.
locker room. And that's, I think, part of the reason we brought him back, even with the unsurety of his health, is he is just a really, really important leader in the locker room. I am curious to see what he does after hockey because he's the kind of guy that I would think would get into like front office, but I don't know. You'd have to think that he claims like Colorado as home, right? Like, is that the front office he's going to work at? I mean,
Where he won the cup, obviously,
yeah,
right?
when you've been slightly transient, I don't know. Be curious to see. I mean,
I
he'll
hope
probably go
so.
back to Canada, but he's definitely one of those guys that I could see doing something like that down the road.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Britt. Like I said, Cogliano, he was one of those guys where um, he grows on you, and especially on that penalty kill. He and Logan O'Connor are my two. You have to be out there, guys.
That's what I'm
Which is
saying.
so
Now we got
wild of
Miles
me to
Wood
say,
on it. It's gonna
but
be fun.
just amazing stuff. And I'm honestly surprised he doesn't play with a wooden stick still. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like,
He's a very odd guy. Very interesting. And
but
sometimes it kind of seems like he's 60, but then he skates like he's like 20. So
he's 31. You said, which is so strange because I was like, I feel like he's like 40 almost because just the fact that
it's hard,
he was
Miles. He was
handed the
born
cup
2 years earlier
third.
than me.
What's that?
He was born 2 years earlier than me. So as much as it
Wow.
seems like he's old as shit.
There you go. So, anyways, yeah, very impressive stuff about Andrew Cogliano. I know the clip you're talking about, so yeah, just be on the lookout for our page, for Brit's page, if you want to find that Cogliano piece. I think it's pretty epic myself. So, okay, so we'll wrap things up today by doing a quick little hockey 101 lesson.
Oh, do you want me to touch the quick news first? I just put down our quick notes. We had a couple things this week, nothing crazy. I don't know if you saw. So Donskoy retired. I'm sure you saw that. Donskoy was one that, and I posted this on Twitter. I always thought that he might come back. He had some very serious concussion issues. I don't think he played a regular season game last year, did he?
He didn't last year. Nope. Tried to play a few the season before, and it just one of those, the injury killed the career type thing.
Which I'd rather see him call it and have a good life. He's got a young family. So, yeah, and that's what I loved. He's just a good guy. He was kind of one of those disappearing acts too, but he had a really sweet personality to make up for it. And he really did work his ass off a lot. And then, so I'm sure you saw that we signed Holland for a PTO. Which he hasn't played an NHL game in like 2 years, so I think people are like, oh my God, he's gonna play for the Avs. But this is more, you have to have like so many vets on each roster with a certain amount of pro games played. And so this is kind of making it so we don't have to play our big boys in all the preseason games. So at best, he would probably get like an AHL contract. I don't think this isn't like a Jack Johnson thing where he's going to actually be looking to play for the Avs. And then I also just saw this right before we got on. They signed Kiviranta for a PTO too. Joel Kiviranta.
Joel Kiviranta, really?
Yeah, which I
didn't know he was a free agent.
Is that a free agent? Okay, so
he must have been, or he was released or something.
This one might be a little more compelling than Holland.
That one's a little more. Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, and that might be maybe if we're looking to fill a more legit AHL roster spot, maybe it is something the Eagles need to fill them, or if he is somebody that might be transient between the Avs, like kind of that bleed spot where he's always like the go-to, or I don't know. But I just saw that right before we hopped on. I don't know if that is brand.
I did not see that. Kiviranta on a professional tryout.
Yeah.
Huh. Because I remember that was a name that was being thrown out quite a bit in the playoffs last year for Dallas. So that's what's kind of surprising.
And it's weird to me that you would have to do it on a PTO. Was he? Yeah, I don't know. Am I totally wrong on that, or did you find
27.
that?
Interesting. No, you're absolutely right. It's a professional.
Okay, good.
Tryout.
I was like, oh my God, did I read that totally wrong?
Nope, you're right. He played 70 games last year, 8 goals, 1 assist for 9 points, but still. He had a few goals and assists in the playoffs as well. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't at least try to give him like a smaller contract or something. But Joel Kiviranta, interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's our next diamond in the rough. Whatever.
Could be. I mean, look what we did with Jack Johnson, for crying out loud. We squeezed 3 more years out of him.
Yeah,
2 or 3 more years, but crazy stuff. Oh, interesting. Okay, so Hockey 101 today. We're going to go back to, again, another offensive strategy. So last week we talked about the 1-2-2 or the 2-2-1, however you want to phrase it. This week we're going to talk about a power play strategy called the umbrella strategy. So I have our little setup here on the side of the ice. Avalanche are in the blue, and we'll say the Red Wings are in the red. So we have a power play, right? So typically they'll set up in what we'll call a box. We'll get to that in another lesson. But the umbrella idea is that you have a forward kind of quarterbacking the blue line, 2 forwards kind of with them, but they'll be on either side. And the main objective, if I kind of get this here, the main objective is to have big, long passes to each other. And what that's supposed to do is that is supposed to take your defense and spread them open, basically, right? Because they'll try to play in whichever way they can to basically disturb the power play, to break up a pass, to do whatever they need to do. So typically what they'd like to try and have happen is open up a big enough lane. So let's say he passes it here. Whoops, let me actually get the right arrow here. He would pass, F1 would pass here to F2 that you could see. The quick fire objective on the umbrella strategy is for a quick one-time shot with a cleared lane after the goalie has either shifted. The whole idea is to get the defense and the goalie to shift sides. So if it was, let's say it started actually at F3, it quickly goes to F1 to F2 or directly to F2 for a quick one-timer, right? To catch the goalie as he is trying to transition from, in this case, right to left. Another way to look at it is perhaps you are doing some small passes up front. Then you find an opening, if you can see my mouse here, an opening kind of in this type of a lane for a quick one-timer tap-in. So let's say he finds this F3 here, finds that lane right there, an opening. That calls for a quick tap-in from F5, right? That was your Gabe Landeskog I guess,
Mhm.
position, so to speak. He was very good with those one-timers, very good with deflection, redirect, that type of an idea. But the whole purpose of the umbrella here is to basically police the entire outside, right? So if there is a bad shot, for example, say goes way wide, for example, and it'll ring around the boards and whatnot. The idea is that F2 comes back up, he'll collect the puck, and we'll start back over again, right? So it's constantly keeping that defense boxed in, passing long, quick passes, F1 to F4 or to F2 to F3, whatever it is, to try to get that defense to kind of pull itself apart and
Well,
have
yeah,
that
and
goalie.
that's why, when you've got McKinnon playing that high spot, it's made for people like him who can utilize that small bit of open space. I mean, he has an incredible way of finding open space, and his speed. This is something that's made for McKinnon to sneak through the second one of the other team makes a mistake and gets out
Exactly.
of where they belong. And that's
Which
where
is why-
McKinnon and Carr find those spaces.
Exactly, which is why a lot of times you'll see, let's say, like, for example, F1 has passed the puck over to F2 here. F2 might kind of cheat down this way and pull everyone with him.
Especially
and
when the
F4 might
other
even-
team naturally all wants to flock to McKinnon.
Exactly, right? So they'll try to pull as many guys as they can this way, let's say, to try to pick up on everyone. And most people forget about this guy right here. Most of the time, it comes by the name of Ovechkin. But Nathan McKinnon has been known to do this from time to time, where you have pulled the defense to one side now. Same with the goaltender. If I just actually put him in there, so he kind of plays off to that side for a very quick pass and one-time shot in the net.
Yeah, and that's about the most guaranteed goal for an NHL goalie. If you're going to score, a lot of the time it's going to be a wild deflection, a beautiful snipe, or a full cross crease one-timer.
Exactly.
That's nearly
and
impossible
those
for anybody to
and
stop.
those are some of the best one-timers you can have, are when this lane right here, if I could draw it up here, I'll just kind of go with cones here.
And that's usually where those ball-in saves come from, is because the goalie has to completely overextend themselves because it's almost impossible to meet that shot in position.
Yep. Because most of your momentum at that point has come and you have sealed up that post, right? The left post as a goalie. So for you to have to go across the ice, mind you, that pass has gone much quicker than you have set. You have to now try to get across the way to block a 90-mile-an-hour shot, 90 plus, right? So most of the time, difficult to do. So if you see that type of a lane open up, that type of a pass being able to be had for someone setting up somewhere within the circle or or on the dot in the face-off circle, wherever it is, that's the idea, is to, like I said, you're pulling apart that defense. You're opening a lane. You're creating an opportunity. Now, the problem with that is if your passes aren't quick enough, if they're mishandled, whatever it is, that gives the defense time, again, if I hit all these back arrows, to set themselves back up to the square option, right? The square defense on a penalty kill, which, again, we'll talk about in a week or two. So that's the idea of the umbrella strategy. So hopefully you guys have learned a thing or two about the power play and how, when you see the Avalanche this season, they'll have plenty of opportunities and we'll have plenty of power play goals. Watch for this. They might be using this setup. It's a very popular setup, especially in the higher tier leagues like the NHL. So be on the lookout for these types of things where they're just policing around. They're just looking for the right pass. And once they find that lane, they'll take it, right? Whether if it's just a slap shot, a one-timer, whatever it is, be on the lookout for it. So anyway, that's called the umbrella strategy on an offensive power play. Hopefully you guys have learned something. And again, we'll keep these things coming until the beginning of the regular season. So, okay. Other than that, I believe that that takes up all of our time. Britt, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
I don't think so.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you once again, everyone, for staying with us here on the Cluster Puck Podcast. We really do enjoy your guys' participation in the live studio sessions that we do. Again, if you want to follow the MHRT network, you can do so by following them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They got plenty of platforms to pick from. Go ahead, like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is you need to do so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck podcast go live. You can also follow us on at the Cluster Puck podcast on Facebook, as well as the Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, we hope you guys have a wonderful week. Don't forget to catch us next week. And as always, go Avs go.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.